The Nickelodeon banned episode's Iceberg exposes decades of controversial content that networks desperately want forgotten. From episodes that aired once and vanished forever to content banned in specific countries while remaining available elsewhere, the reasons vary wildly. Some bans protected children from genuinely harmful flashing animations, while others resulted from pearl-clutching overreactions to minor jokes. To put it mildly, the deeper you go into this iceberg, the more bizarre the stories become. One episode featured a character covered only in explosives, another showed cartoon kids experiencing the consequences of substance abuse, and several disappeared simply because cultural attitudes shifted. These 70-plus banned episodes tell fascinating stories about broadcasting standards. The network pulled multiple episodes throughout the 90s and 2000s for content involving violence, inappropriate jokes, or imagery that traumatized young viewers. One of the most notorious examples came from programming that featured characters in dangerous situations without proper context for children to understand the consequences. Parents flooded network phone lines with complaints, forcing executives to make quick decisions about what stayed and what got permanently archived. What's fascinating about these surface-level bans is how standards evolved over time. Content that seemed perfectly acceptable in 1995 became absolutely unacceptable by 2005. The network found itself reevaluating entire catalogs of programming, searching for anything that might trigger parental complaints or regulatory scrutiny. This process revealed dozens of episodes containing moments that somehow slipped past original review boards. The thing nobody tells you is that many of these episodes weren't created with malicious intent. Writers, animators, and producers genuinely believed they were creating harmless entertainment. The disconnect between creator intent and audience reception created a massive problem for networks trying to maintain family-friendly reputations while producing enough content to fill 24-hour broadcast schedules. One particularly controversial episode featured animated characters experiencing consequences from poor decisions intended as an educational message. However, the graphic depiction of these consequences disturbed parents who felt the content went too far for young audiences. The episode aired exactly once before network officials yanked it from rotation permanently. This pattern repeated throughout the decade, with episodes disappearing after single broadcasts once viewer complaints reached critical mass. The most interesting aspect of surface-level bans involves episodes that different countries handle differently. Content deemed too intense for American audiences aired without issue in European markets, while some episodes banned internationally remained available in the United States. These geographical inconsistencies revealed how cultural attitudes toward children's programming vary dramatically across borders, creating headaches for international networks trying to maintain consistent standards. But these obvious controversies barely scratched the surface of what Nickelodeon actually banned. Descending deeper into the iceberg reveals episodes banned for less obvious reasons, where content became controversial through unintended circumstances or changing cultural landscapes. These mid-level bans often involved episodes that seemed harmless during production but developed problematic associations afterwards. Several episodes got pulled after real-world events made their content seem inappropriate or insensitive. Networks couldn't have predicted these connections when producing content months or years in advance, but once the associations formed, keeping episodes in rotation became impossible. This created bizarre situations where perfectly innocent cartoons disappeared from broadcast simply because timing made them look bad. One category of mid-level bans involved episodes featuring celebrity guest appearances or references that later became controversial. When public figures fell from grace due to scandals or criminal behavior, networks scrambled to remove any content featuring or promoting these individuals. This meant entire episodes got scrapped despite containing only brief references or cameo appearances that constituted maybe 30 seconds of runtime. The mid-level also includes episodes banned for accidental offensive content that creators never intended. Animation errors, background details, or throwaway jokes sometimes contained imagery or references that viewers interpreted as inappropriate. Once these elements got discovered and shared online, networks had no choice but to pull episodes to avoid prolonged controversy. Many of these discoveries happened years after the original broadcast, when internet communities began analyzing old episodes frame by frame. You see, the rise of social media completely changed how networks handled potentially controversial content. Before widespread internet access, complaints came through phone calls or letters that networks could manage quietly. But once Twitter and Facebook enabled instant mass outrage, Even minor controversies could explode into major problems within hours. This forced networks to adopt increasingly conservative approaches to content evaluation, pulling anything that might potentially spark online backlash. Some mid-level bans resulted from episodes that unintentionally predicted or referenced real tragedies. When fictional content bore uncomfortable similarities to actual events, networks removed episodes out of respect for victims and to avoid accusations of insensitivity. These situations created ethical dilemmas about whether fictional content created before real events should face permanent deletion. The most puzzling mid-level bans involved episodes pulled temporarily, then reinstated years later once controversies died down. Networks walked a tightrope between respecting viewer concerns and maintaining access to their content libraries. Some episodes spent 5, 10, even 15 years in limbo before executives decided enough time has passed to bring them back. What many overlooked is how these mid-level bans revealed deeper issues about content creation and cultural sensitivity. The deepest level of banned Nickelodeon episodes contains content that caused genuine harm, sparked real-world incidents, or pushed boundaries so far that networks could justify their existence in children's programming under any circumstances. This category includes the infamous episode that caused hundreds of children to experience medical emergencies due to flashing animation sequences. The incident happened when an episode featured rapid color changes that triggered photosensitive responses in viewers, sending over 600 kids to hospitals with symptoms ranging from headaches to full seizures. The network immediately pulled the episode worldwide and implemented strict new guidelines about animation effects that might cause similar reactions. This single incident changed broadcasting standards across the entire industry, with networks adding warnings about viewing conditions and limiting certain types of visual effects. Another deep-level ban involved an episode accused of inspiring actual dangerous behavior in children. When a real tragedy occurred that seemed to mirror content from a recently aired episode, the network faced intense scrutiny about whether their programming influenced the incident. The family involved blamed the show for giving their child ideas, leading to lawsuits and public outcry. Although investigations later revealed the child had never actually watched the episode in question, the damage to the show's reputation became permanent. The network pulled the episode immediately and never aired it again. The deep controversies often involved content that seemed acceptable during production, but violated standards that evolved rapidly as society's understanding of harmful content expanded. Episodes featuring outdated stereotypes, insensitive portrayals of disabilities, or content that could be interpreted as promoting dangerous behavior got systematically removed from catalogs. Networks faced difficult decisions about whether to preserve these episodes as historical artifacts or delete them entirely to prevent potential harm. Some deep-level bans resulted from behind-the-scenes controversies involving creators rather than the content itself. When individuals involved in producing episodes face serious allegations or criminal charges, networks pull all associated content regardless of whether the episodes themselves contained anything objectionable. This guilt by association approach meant innocent crew members' work disappeared simply because of one person's actions. The absolute bottom of the iceberg contains episodes that networks refuse to acknowledge ever existed. These ghost episodes were pulled so quickly and thoroughly that few people remember seeing them, and networks scrubbed them from official records. Tracking down information about these episodes required digging through old TV guides, fan forums, and archived internet pages, piecing together fragments of information about content networks desperately wanted forgotten. To put it mildly, the most disturbing deep-level bans involved episodes where multiple elements combined to create genuinely inappropriate content that never should have reached broadcast. These weren't simple oversights or accidental controversies, but fundamental failures in the production and review process. How these episodes made it through multiple checkpoints before airing remains a mystery that executives probably prefer never gets solved. The final layer reveals how networks balance creative freedom against responsibility to young audiences. The legacy of banned Nickelodeon episodes extends far beyond individual controversies, fundamentally changing how networks approach children's programming. Every ban taught lessons about content evaluation, cultural sensitivity, and the responsibility that comes with broadcasting to millions of impressionable viewers. Modern children's networks employ extensive review processes that would seem absurd to 90s producers. Episodes now pass through multiple evaluation stages, with teams specifically tasked with identifying potentially problematic content before broadcast. This includes cultural consultants, child psychologists, and sensitivity readers who examine scripts and finished episodes for anything that might cause controversy. These expanded review processes grew directly from lessons learned through decades of banned episodes and public backlash. The rise of streaming platforms created new complications for managing controversial content. Unlike broadcast television, where banned episodes simply disappeared, streaming services must decide whether to include controversial content with disclaimers, modify episodes to remove problematic elements, or exclude them entirely. Different platforms handle this differently, leading to situations where the same show has different episode collections depending on which service streams it. Fan communities maintain detailed records of banned episodes, creating unofficial archives that preserve content networks want forgotten. These communities debate whether banned content should remain accessible for historical purposes, or whether keeping it available causes more harm than preservation value. Some argue that banned episodes provide important lessons about how standards evolved, while others believe certain content serves no purpose beyond causing potential harm. The most fascinating legacy involves episodes that became more valuable or interesting specifically because they got banned. Forbidden content attracts curiosity, turning obscure episodes into cult classics that fans desperately want to see. This created perverse incentives where controversy increased interest rather than burying content as intended. Some banned episodes achieved legendary status in fan communities, with people who never watched them when available now desperate to track them down. Networks learned that transparency about bans often works better than trying to pretend episodes never existed. When executives explain clearly why certain content got pulled, audiences generally understand and accept those decisions. However, when networks remain silent about bans, speculation and conspiracy theories fill the information vacuum, often making situations worse than honest communication would have. The financial implications of banned episodes affect how networks approach controversial content today. Every banned episode represents wasted production money, lost advertising revenue, and potential damage to brand reputation. These costs make executives increasingly conservative about approving anything remotely controversial, which critics argue lead to sanitized, uninspired programming that takes no creative risks. Looking forward, the conversation about banned children's content continues evolving as society's understanding of harmful content grows more sophisticated. Content that seems acceptable today might face bans tomorrow as standards continue shifting. The iceberg of banned Nickelodeon episodes serves as a reminder that creating children's entertainment requires constant vigilance, cultural awareness, and a willingness to admit mistakes when content crosses lines. Should networks preserve banned episodes as historical artifacts or delete them permanently? Drop your thoughts below, smash that like button, and subscribe for more deep dives into television controversies nobody discusses.